evening, and welcome to this week's edition of The Message. I am your host, Donatus King, and we'll spend this next hour with one purpose in mind, and that one purpose is delivering the message that God is Almighty. Everything that ever was, is now, ever will be, was made by God. Everything that ever happened, is happening right now, or ever will happen, was made to happen by God. God has a master plan for all time and all creation. God is Almighty. The message is brought to you by, is produced by the Society of Knowledge Incorporated. The Society is an interdenominational religious spiritual organization. Our members come from various different religious and spiritual backgrounds. We have various different religious and spiritual beliefs. Although we come from different backgrounds and have different beliefs, there's one belief that we share. There's one piece of knowledge that we hold in common. And that's the knowledge that there is a being. By no matter what name we may have been taught to call that being, by no matter what name we may have come to know that being, whether that name be God, Allah, Yahweh, Jesus, Jehovah, nature, by no matter what name, we know that there is a being that possesses not some of the power, not most of the power, but all of the power. That's the reason we do this show, and the only reason we do this show is to deliver the message that that being, that personally I call God, that being is indeed Almighty. Today is September the 27th, 2018. I remind you of that fact because tonight, as we are on most Thursdays, we are live. And I remind you of that fact because this show is an open discussion. It's a two-way conversation. You see the telephone number that's on your screen now. I invite you to use that number to call in and join the discussion. Those of you that are watching by Facebook, I invite you to call that number or post a comment to Facebook and join the discussion. Our discussion topic tonight is sex. Okay, sex, S-E-X, sex. That's what we'll be talking about tonight. Join the discussion. If there's something that's going on in your church, your mosque, your masjid, your temple, your place of worship, your synagogue, and you want to let the world know about it, call in. Post your comment on Facebook, let the world know about it. If there's something that's going on in your nonprofit organization, we invite you to call in and let the world know about it. More important than what's going on in your place of worship, more important than what's going on in your nonprofit organization, if there's something that God has done for you in your life, a miracle that God has worked in your life, I invite you to please, I encourage you, I ask you to please share your testimony with the world. Let the world know that God is still working miracles in the year 2018. You know, it may be something that God has done for you in your life, a miracle that God has worked. Whether it was a miracle related to health, maybe there was some part of your body that was hurting, and God just healed your body. Yeah, I know a lot of you out there that are suffering with backaches, that have had backaches and suffer from backaches, surgery, you're afraid to go through surgery, everything else that the doctors have tried hasn't worked. Maybe you've even had surgery and it didn't work. And I know you might be suffering from that. Maybe one of you out there has some similar problems and the surgery didn't work, medicine didn't work, but God just healed your back. That's right, healed your back, and you no longer have that pain. Call in, post your comment to Facebook. Let folks know that God can make a difference in their life. Let them know that God can work a miracle in their life. Let them know that God can work a miracle and heal, take away that back pain right now. Call in, post your testimony to Facebook. All right, we're going to go right into the show, and you hear me talking fast because we have a full show tonight. We have a discussion. As I said, we're going to get into our discussion, and tonight we're going to talk about sex. That's what we'll be talking about tonight. Enjoy. I invite you to call in, share your comments, join the discussion. But before that, we'll go through our announcements, and then after our announcements, we'll get into our discussion, and then we'll go into our words of inspiration. As I say, we'll have our announcements, and we don't have any testimonies tonight, not any that's recorded. Then we'll go into our religious spiritual study, prove all things, hold fast that which is good, coming out of the first book of Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. Then we'll go in our words of inspiration coming out of the book of Exodus, chapter 2, verses 7 through 25. And if we get that far, we'll go into chapter 3, verses 1 through 16. Our announcements for tonight, that's our main website, www.godisalmighty.org. I invite you to lock that into your web browser 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can visit that website and see previously recorded episodes of the message. And you can also go to that website, and there are links to all of our social media outlets. We have a religious discussion blog. You can go look at the different topics that we have. You can post your comments, your opinions about those discussion topics. There's a link to our Facebook page, Twitter account, Instagram, YouTube. Take a look at our YouTube page. You know, we have a whole bunch of videos on there, videos going back many years, different topics, different subjects. So I invite you to go and look at our YouTube page. Rock of Ages Ministries International, Apostle Ronnie Bailey. That's their website, main website, www.ronniebailey.com. New Orleans Peacekeepers is doing some great work, still doing great work here in the New Orleans area. That phone number, 504-500-1706. And I just want to let you know that the Peacekeepers are not only here in the city of New Orleans, but they are spread throughout the United States. I know Brother Walter Omrani has a Peacekeepers that he's working with. He just moved maybe about 5 or 6 months ago. And the city that he's in right now, they have an active Peacekeepers organization. Call 311-830 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. here in the New Orleans area for free smoke detectors. Please check your car's back seats for babies. Yeah, I know it's starting to get a little bit cooler, but it's still hot enough for a child to die from heat if it's left closed up in the back seat of a car. So check your car's back seat. Make sure we don't accidentally leave any babies back there. Testimonies, we don't have any testimonies tonight. So we're going to get straight into our religious spiritual study discussion. And that discussion topic tonight, as I said, that discussion topic tonight is sex. And more to the point, the power of sex. Okay, now, I know some of you all might be saying, what does that have to do with spirituality and religion? What does that have to do? Well, first of all, let me tell you how that topic came up. That topic came up because today, for many people, not only Americans, but for many people around the world, we're focused today on the United States Senate Judiciary Committee hearings relating to the nomination of Judge Kavanaugh to the United States Supreme Court. Okay, now just work with me now. Work with me is, it's going to take me just a minute to really move into this and connect the dots to let you see what I'm talking about. Okay, now the United States Supreme Court, that's one of the most powerful positions in the world, period, in the world. And I say that because just think about it for a minute. Okay? This country is governed by 3 branches of government. Okay? 3. The executive, and the head of the executive branch is the president. The legislative, and the legislative branch made up of our United States House of Representatives and United States Senate. And then the 3rd branch of government is the judicial. And at the top of the judicial branch of government is the United States Supreme Court. And the United States Supreme Court consists of 9 justices. So that is a seat of power in our country. And just think about it, how powerful the Supreme Court is. Okay? The Supreme Court is the body, even though all three branches of government are supposed to be separate and have equal power, the Supreme Court has power over the executive branch. And it has power over the executive branch because it decides controversies related to the executive branch. Remember several years ago when the election dispute arose as to whether or not Bush was going to be the president, and the Supreme Court had to issue a ruling on the ballots down in Florida, and because of the way the Supreme Court ruled, Bush became our president. Remember that? Also, the Supreme Court has the power to determine other controversies relating to the executive branch. For instance, there's a big issue right now as to whether or not a president can be indicted, whether or not criminal charges can be brought against the president while he's in office. It's the Supreme Court that has the power to make that determination. When it comes down to the legislative branch, the legislative branch makes legislation, makes laws, passes laws. But it's the Supreme Court that interprets those laws and says exactly what those laws mean. That's why there's this big debate right now about Roe versus Wade and the ability of the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. So the Supreme Court, a lot of power. Okay, now I'm going to try to tie this stuff together for you, what it's got to do with sex and what it has to do with religion and spirituality. Well, as I said today, I was glued to my computer watching the hearings about Judge Kavanaugh, watching it live. And there were millions of people around the world watching it the same way I was. And now the crazy part about this is that Judge Kavanaugh went through Senate hearings weeks ago, passed through it, flew through it, with all the different questions that they had. You know, all the different little obstacles. Well, they weren't letting all of his documents be seen. He lied, about something that he did a while ago. With all of that, he passed through those hearings, and it looked like he was going to be confirmed without any problem. Well, guess what happened? Sex. And the power of sex. Even though it's a good bet that he will still be confirmed, that confirmation is not as sure as it was 2 weeks ago. And it's not as sure as it was 2 weeks ago because of sex. See, the question has arisen, for those of you that have not been really following it, the question has arisen as to whether or not Judge Kavanaugh sexually assaulted a young lady more than 30 years ago. Whether he was drunk and sexually assaulted a young lady. Now, that's actually a crime. It's a crime of violence. He could be prosecuted for that. And even though all those other issues didn't trip him up, this is one that's tripping him up and could derail his nomination. Okay? So one of the most powerful seats in government, one of the most powerful seats in the United States government, and the United States being one of the most powerful nations in the world, that position of power, that powerful Supreme Court seat could be lost because of the power of sex. Okay, the power of sex. Now, when I was preparing for tonight's show, as I say, I was preparing for tonight's show, and I'm looking at this stuff going on, and, you know, just reflecting on how this powerful man could be brought down by sex. And I got to reflecting on, the Spirit was moving me about the power of sex. And here it is. Look at what else we read about and saw on TV this past week. The power of sex. Bill Cosby. Okay, Bill Cosby, America's father, pudding pop man. Real pudding pop. You know, now folks don't want nothing to do with a pudding pop. Bill Cosby, 81 years old, and they say he's blind. Multi-millionaire. I don't know, he might have been a billionaire. I know he's multi-millionaire, hundreds of millions of dollars at least. Well loved throughout the whole world. Bill Cosby made people laugh. And the image on TV this week, Bill Cosby in chains, being led around because he has fallen from grace. And his fall was caused by the power of sex. Multi-millionaire convicted of sex crime, drugging women to have sex with them. Okay, the power of sex. The power of sex make a man risk his fame and fortune, millions of dollars gone because of sex. Judge Kavanaugh, when we read about, and I was listening to the TV, you know, he came up in an atmosphere surrounded by folks that go into country clubs and private schools and all the rest of that. Affluent. Went to Harvard Law School. You know, affluent. And here it is, the power of sex could be to knock this man out of a position on the Supreme Court. Well, now, you know, so we talk about Kavanaugh, we talk about Bill Cosby, and we talk about President Trump with all of the other stuff, the Russians and money laundering and all of that. The thing that really tripped them up is the power of sex. That's this porn star, Stormy Daniels. Say the power of sex. Sex is a powerful thing. See, throughout history, we've been reading about what sex been doing to folks. And I got to just thinking about that and preparing for tonight's show, and got to think about some stuff in the Bible about the power of sex. Brother John, thank you. Brother Claudius, thank you for joining us on Facebook. You know, if you have a comment about this power of sex, I invite you to please post your comment. I invite you to turn to the book of Genesis, chapter 12, verses 11 through 20. Now, I didn't have a chance to get these printed up to put on the screen, so just get your pencil and paper out and write them, and you can follow along, you know, later on, or if you have your Bible out now, you can get your Bible out now. Genesis chapter 12, verses 11 through 20. Now, I could have went further back in Genesis because some folks talk about there's some sexual connotation in the story between Adam and Eve and the serpent. Some folks say that whole story has something to do with sex. But I ain't going to start there. I'm going to start in the book of Genesis, chapter 12, verses 11 to 20. And I'm talking about a fellow that was called Abraham. Okay? Abraham, chapter 12, verses 11 through 20. And it came to pass when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, so this is Abraham talking to his wife Sarai, behold, now I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. You're a pretty girl. Therefore it shall come to pass when the Egyptians, them heathens, shall see thee, they shall say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. They're going to save her. See, Abraham saying, look, girl, you look good. When we go to Egypt, them Egyptians, they're going to want to kill me so they can have you and have sex with you. Okay, the power of sex. All right, now look goes on now. It said, say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. And it came to pass that when Abraham was coming to Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman that she was very fair. The princes also of Pharaoh saw her, and commanded her before Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And he entreated Abram well for her sake, and he had sheep and oxen, and he asses, and manservants, and maidservants, and she asses, and camels. Now look, Pharaoh gave all this stuff to Abraham so that Pharaoh could have Abraham's wife. And Abraham played along with it, said, this is my sister. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, wait a minute, look here, I've skipped one verse. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, what is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why sayest thou, she is my sister, so I might have taken her to me to wife? Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go thy way. See, now that's the power of sex. Now what didn't happen here? And we've talked about this many years ago. We talked about this verse when we read it. Some folks would say that Abram was a pimp, that he gave Pharaoh his wife, he pimped Sarah. Pharaoh gave him all kind of camels and all kind of stuff. And then Abraham came up and said, well, look, that's really my wife. Right? But again, the power of sex. Now, I got a couple more I'm going to go through. Let's go to Genesis 19. Genesis chapter 19. We're going to start verses 1. 19 and 1. And this is Sodom and Gomorrah. And there came 2 angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom, and Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, behold, now my Lord's turning, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and you shall rise up early, and go on your ways. And they said, nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him, and entered into his house, and he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they lay down, the men of the city, listen to this, it said the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. Now, when he's talking about may know them, they're talking in that biblical sense of know. They want to have sex with them. And that's where you hear about, see, Sodom. And nowadays you hear the term sodomy. Sodomy, anal sex, particularly anal sex with men. Sodomy comes from the name of this town, Sodom. So these, the power of sex, it's Sodom. They said, we're gonna rape these men, bring them out here. And Lot went out the door unto them and shut the door after him and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. See, Lot said, that's going to be wicked. You can't be doing that to them men. Behold, now I have 2 daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes, only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. Yeah, Lot saying, look, y'all funny boys, y'all going trying to stick people in their back, all this sodomy stuff. Look, leave them 2 men alone. I'm going to give you my 2 daughters that's virgins. And you do what you want with them, but leave these men alone. Don't try to do that kind of stuff to them. The power of sex. And one of the things that we know, keep reading a little further, one of the things that we know that the Lord, that God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, destroyed them because of, as they say, their wickedness. See, the power, again, the power of sex. Now, I'm going to go a little bit further. Sister, Brother Stacy, thank you for joining us on Facebook. We're talking about sex, okay? The power of sex. We're going to go to, this is one, 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel, chapter 11. And now this is a cold-blooded one right here. Yeah, this is cold-blooded. You know, we're talking about the power of sex. See, we talk about Trump with his sex things going on. We talk about Bill Cosby with his sex things going on. We talk about Kavanaugh with his sex things going on. Well, look, we got another leader that we're going to read about right now. Not only was he a government leader, but he was a spiritual leader, a religious leader. And this is no other than King David. King David. All right. 2 Samuel chapter 11. We're going to start in verse 2. And it came to pass in an eventide that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. The king's house, that's David's house. David was the king. So he done got up and walked out on his roof. Okay, he the king. He could do that kind of stuff. Gets up in the evening, goes out on his roof. Now look what it says here. And from the roof, I told you about the power of sex. And from the roof, he saw a woman washing herself. A woman, she naked. That's the power of sex. David's up there on his roof. He's the king. He looks out, and what does he see? He sees a naked woman washing herself. Wait a minute. Look what it said. And the woman was very beautiful to look upon. See, I'm talking about in the Bible, the power of sex in the Bible. So you got the king. You know, so far he ain't did nothing wrong. You know, he went out there on his roof. He's not blind. He looked, and this naked woman washing herself, so he's looking. And she's beautiful. Beautiful to look upon. So he's looking. All right? But look at the power of sex. You see, you talk about people in high places. Look at Trump, high place, look what sex done to him. Bill Cosby, look what sex done to him. Kavanaugh, look what sex is doing to him. Look old David, King David. Look at it, beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman. So now David, look at this naked woman out there. And she's beautiful to look at. So now he trying to find out a little bit more about her. You know, old naked girl, beautiful to look at. Let me learn a little bit more about this old naked girl there. All right, and one said, is not this Bathsheba? David and Bathsheba. Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Oh, hold on now. Wait a minute. Power of sex. Look here. They done told David. They done told him and said, look, man, that's a married woman. That's a married woman. All right? Well, you know, no harm, no foul. No harm, no foul. Oh, David walked out on his roof, looked out, saw this naked woman washing herself. She looked good, and now he's trying to get a little info on her. No harm, no foul, okay? Understandable. Power of sex, yeah. Power of sex, understandable. But now you done been told that this woman is married. So that's the end of the story. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe not. Let's see. Let's read some more. And David said, well, no, I can't believe this. I can't believe what I'm reading. And David sent messengers and took her. And she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned unto her house. Oh, wait a minute. I got to shake my head. You know, if I had one of them little emojis with a shake my head, or one of them gifts shake, I had to shake my head. Look what David done did. They done told him the woman married. And what did he do? He sent for her. He the king. He do what he want. He sent for her. And he took her. And he lay with her. He knows she married. But see, the power of sex said, David, look, hey, man, she married. Forget all that. She looked good. Power of sex. And he took her and he laid with her. The power of sex. So when we're reading about Bill Cosby, when we're reading about Kavanaugh, when we're reading about Donald Trump, got all the way back to David. King David. The power of sex. And the woman conceived and sent and told David and said, I am with child. Now see, that right there, if we're going to judge, that right there is bad enough. He knew the woman was married. Now he got her pregnant. But that ain't all. Let's read some more. And David sent to Joab, saying, send me Uriah the Hittite. Now remember who Uriah is? Uriah is Bathsheba's husband. I didn't say boyfriend. Bathsheba's husband. David the king, who done slept with Uriah's wife, done knocked her up, got her pregnant. And now he's saying, go bring Uriah to me. Yeah, boy, there's some stuff going on here. The power of sex. And when Uriah was coming to him, David demanded of him how Joab did, and how the people did, and how the war prospered. You have a little small talk with him. Now he done got this man's wife pregnant. And he gonna stand up and hold a conversation with him. Oh man, how things going? You know, how are the people doing out there? How's the war going? You know, it's a lovely day. All right, the power of sex. And David said to Uriah, go down to thy house and wash thy feet. And Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. Man, see, David's low down. Now, David done had a little chit-chat with the man, sent him home, and sent him some food behind him. You know, this is my buddy. Oh man, the king loved me. King David loved me. He sending some meat to my house. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord and went not down to his house. Uriah was a dedicated, faithful soldier. Uriah said, no, I'm not going to my house and be comfortable in my house. I'm going to stay here with all the other soldiers and serve my king. See, Uriah didn't know what was going on between David and his wife. He didn't know about that. He didn't know that that baby that was in his wife's belly, that was David's baby. He didn't know that. He's loyal soldier. And when they had told David, saying, Uriah went not down unto his house, David said unto Uriah, camest thou not from thy journey? Why then didst thou not go down unto thine house? See old David, old tricky David. And Uriah said unto David, the ark and Israel and Judah abide in tents. And my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in the open fields. Shall I then go into mine house to eat and to drink and to lie with my wife? As thou livest and as thy soul liveth, I will not do this thing. Uriah said, look, I'm a loyal soldier. All the other soldiers, they've been out there fighting just like me. Now, they didn't come from the battlefield, but they're still sleeping in their tents. I'm not going to my house and be in comfort when all of my comrades are out here in their tents. I'm going to be just like the regular common soldier. I'm going to stay in the tent too. See? Messing up David's plan. And David said to Uriah, tarry here today also, and tomorrow I will let thee depart. So Uriah abode in Jerusalem that day and the morrow. And when David had called him, he did eat and drink before him, and he made him drunk. David made Uriah drunk. And at even he went out to lie on his bed with the servants of his Lord, but went not down to his house. And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. Now look at this, boy. This is 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 15. Mark this down now. 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 15. The power of sex. The power of sex. And he wrote, now they talk about David, and he wrote in the letter saying, set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him, that he may be smitten and die. That's murder. That's just flat out murder. David told Joab, now Joab is the general. Okay? Joab is the general. He's the leader of the troops. Uriah is one of the soldiers. David sent a letter. Now look how low down it is. David sent a letter to Joab, and he sent it by Uriah. He said, Uriah, take this to Joab. And the letter said, look, Joab, I want you to take Uriah. This is David giving instructions to Joab. Said, take Uriah. Put him on the front line of the battlefield. Put him on the front line of the battlefield. Don't put him in the back of the battlefield. Put him on the front line of the battlefield. And then after you put him on the front line of the after you put him on the front line of the battlefield, I want you to take all your men and move back and leave Uriah up in the front by himself. That's right. Put him on the front line. And then you step back. Look, as it says that real plain. It says, look, not only on the front line, it said in the forefront of the hottest battle, where they're fighting the most. Put him in the forefront, on the front line of the place where it's the most dangerous. And look what he says. And retire ye from him. You move back. Put him up there, and then you move back. Let him stand out there by himself. But now this is the coldest part right here. David's not even trying to be subtle, not even trying to be sneaky. He's just saying straight out what's on his mind. And when he says that he may be smitten and die. David said, I want to kill this man, but I won't do it on the sneaky side. I don't want folks to see me kill him directly. I won't murder this man, but I'm going to let the other army murder him for me. And why is David doing this? He's doing this because of the power of sex. See, that sex with Bathsheba was so good that David said, forget about fairness. I will commit murder for that sex. She's married. I will murder her husband for that sex. The power of sex. And it came to pass, verse 16, it came to pass when Joab observed the city that he assigned Uriah unto a place where he knew that valiant men were. And the men of that city went out and fought with Joab, and there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also. The power of sex. When you read through your Bible, you see all different kinds of places where the power of sex was involved. You find all different kinds of places where men did things because of sex. So when we read in our newspapers today, in the year of 2018, about our world leaders, not only here in the United States, but around the world, when we read about our world leaders being involved in sex scandals, there's nothing new. This is something that going all the way back to the book of Genesis. We read about the power of sex and the things that have been done because of the power of sex. All right, let's get into our words of inspiration coming out of the book of Exodus, chapter 2, starting in verse 7. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? All right. You know, we started reading out of the book of Exodus last week, and the child that they're talking about now, just a recap for those of you that may not have watched last week's show, the baby they're talking about is Moses. Okay, Moses' mama put him in a little bitty boat in the river to save his life. And Pharaoh's daughter has seen this little bitty baby in this little bitty boat and told her servants to go get that little baby. She knew it was a Hebrew baby. She knew that the baby should be killed because that's what Pharaoh said. But she didn't do that. She said, no, I ain't going to kill this little baby. I'm not going to do that. Pharaoh's daughter. Right? And we were reading these scriptures in the context of God being almighty and how God had a plan. So God had a plan for Moses. See, even though Moses was born at a time when all the little male Hebrew babies were supposed to be killed, even though he was born during that time, God had a plan for him. And that plan did not include Moses being killed when he was a baby. See, God's plan was that Moses would be saved because God has some work for Moses to do. Now look how, we talked last week about all these coincidences that resulted in Moses not being killed. All those coincidences about his mama having the idea to build a little bitty boat. His mama going out and getting the materials, all them coincidences. Mama putting him in the boat at the same time that Pharaoh's daughter was coming down to wash herself. All them coincidences. And as we discussed last week, ain't no coincidence. All part of God's master plan for Moses. And God has a master plan for each and every last one of us. Everything that we're going through today is part of God's master plan. Everything that we're going through today is part of God's plan. Things that have to happen so that God's plan for us for tomorrow can be realized. See, the things that are happening in our lives today are part of that continuum, that one step after the other, that goes throughout eternity. See, God has a plan for everything that ever was, is now, ever will be. When God created the sun, he had a plan for the sun. When God created the moon, he had a plan for the moon. When God created earth, he had a plan for the earth and for all the things on this earth. You see, the scripture tells us that in the beginning was God. Before there was any sun or moon or earth, it was God. And then God created all these things. The same way that God had a plan for the moon, the sun, the earth, Moses, God has a plan for you and me. See, being in that little bitty boat, floating along in that river, in that little bitty boat, that was part of God's plan for Moses. Now look what the scriptures say. The scriptures say not only did Pharaoh's daughter see that baby in that little bitty boat, but Pharaoh's daughter sent her servants to go get it. And look at here. Look at the servant that happened to be the one that went and got that little baby in that boat. That servant was who? It was Moses' sister. Pharaoh didn't know that. Pharaoh's daughter didn't know that. Isn't that a coincidence? And look what it says. It says what? Look at this brilliant idea that Moses' sister comes up with. The brilliant idea is that, Pharaoh's daughter, maybe it would be a good idea if we got a nurse for this little baby. Maybe that might be a good idea. Let's get a nurse for this little baby. That sounds like a good idea. Isn't that a coincidence? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went and, wait a minute, and the maid went and called the child's mother. Well, hold on now. What kind of stuff is this? Isn't that a coincidence? So now here's this little Hebrew boy that's supposed to be dead. It's just a coincidence that his mama had the inspiration, had the thought, had the idea to make a little boat and put him in a little boat. Just a coincidence. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? Little baby floating in that boat at the same time. Pharaoh's daughter comes down to take a bath. Ain't that something? A coincidence. Ain't it a coincidence that the servant that she sends to go get that little baby in that little boat, that servant just happens to be the little baby's sister. Just happens to be Moses' sister. Ain't that a coincidence? And now, ain't this another coincidence that Pharaoh's daughter says, well, look, I need somebody to nurse this little baby. And ain't that just a coincidence that she tells the baby's sister, she didn't know it was the baby's sister, but she tells the baby's sister, look, go get somebody to nurse this little baby. And now ain't this another coincidence that the sister, look who the sister goes against. Look who the sister goes and gets to be the nurse. Well, ain't that something? Gets the baby's real mama. Moses' mama. Now, ain't that a coincidence? Ain't that something? Well, like I always say, and those of you that watch the show, you know I always say this, ain't no coincidence. It's part of God's plan. Look what done happened here. Everything that needed to happen for that little baby to survive, it happened. As improbable as it was, all those things happened. As improbable, as unlikely as it was for those things to happen, they all happened. The mama, Moses' mama, just happened to have the idea to build a little bitty boat. Moses' mama just happened to be able to go out and gather all the bulrushes, all the materials to make the little bitty boat. Moses' mama just happened to have the knowledge on how to build that little bitty boat. It just so happened that that little bitty boat was sturdy enough, seaworthy enough to hold that little baby and didn't sink to the bottom of the river. It just so happened that the weather was nice weather. It wasn't storming. It wasn't any waves that would sink that little bitty boat. It just so happened that when that little bitty boat was flowing down that river, that Pharaoh's daughter just so happened to be in that same area where that little bitty boat with that little bitty baby was. It just so happened that Pharaoh's daughter, and look, it just so happened that it was somebody, Pharaoh's daughter, that had a position that she could save that baby and not be in trouble. It just so happens. It just so happened that Pharaoh's daughter told Moses' sister to go get that little bitty baby in that little bitty boat. It just so happened that Moses' sister said, well, look, you're going to need somebody to nurse this baby. It just so happened that Pharaoh's daughter said, yes, I am going to need somebody to nurse this baby. It just so happened that Moses' sister said, well, I'm going to go get somebody. And it just so happened that the person that she went to get was the little baby's natural born mama. Now, ain't that just so happened? Ain't that something? No, it ain't no just so happened. God had a master plan for Moses. See, before Moses was placed in his mama's belly, God had this planned out. Before Moses was birthed through his mama's birth canal, God had it planned out that Moses would be spared, that he would be saved. See, God had work for Moses to do. Let me tell you something. God has work for you and for me. Those of us that might be worried about if we're going to die today or tomorrow, let me tell you something. We ain't going to die until the work God has planned for us to do, until that work is done. I don't care if you call yourself good or bad, if you call yourself saved or unsaved, if you call yourself holy or the devil. I don't care how you think about yourself. I don't care what nobody say about you. You ain't going nowhere until God has accomplished his plan for you. You ain't going nowhere until your work is done. And everything, understand what I'm saying, everything that you're going through is all part of preparing you for that work that God has planned for you. Now, I don't know about you, but that gives me peace. See, it gives me peace knowing that the same way God had a plan for Moses, God has a plan for me. It gives me peace knowing that I ain't going to make a step unless my step is directed by God. See, if God wants me to go this way, ain't no way I'm going to go that way, because God is almighty. I don't care how I am judged, because the one who created me, the one who controls me, the one who controls everything that ever was, is now, ever will be, is in control. See, I find peace. I don't have to worry about none of that. And I'm here to share with you that the same way that God has a plan for you and me, that God is indeed in control. The same way God had a plan for Moses, God is indeed in control. As I wrap up now, as I say, that gives me peace. And it's my prayer that no matter whatever it is that God has planned for you in this upcoming week, no matter whatever it is, that God blesses you and yours with peace.